Welcome to the Hyper Growth Zone podcast. This is your go-to resource for personal growth, mastering communication, and influencing and persuasion techniques that will help you unleash the full potential of yourself and others. Here is your host, Alex Morgan.
Welcome to another episode of the Hyper Growth Zone podcast. My name is Alex Morgan, and I'm a master trainer of hypnosis and NLP. I want to start this off with a question. What's really stopping people from having deep, meaningful relationships, whether that's personal or professional? So on this episode, this is what we're going to dive into. We're going to dive into some of the common limiting beliefs people have about relationships, and how you can easily and effortlessly build stronger personal and professional relationships. And I'll share some little anecdotes to help you and guide you to see how you can easily do this. Also, recently, I had an episode with a guest, Kristen Nolan, and this episode was really helpful for building meaningful connections. So if you're really interested in that as well, make sure to listen to that episode, because let me tell you, Kristen is an expert on building meaningful connections. It's essentially what she does all day long. So when we're talking personal and professional relationships, we want to think about how does this really happen? Because what if you could really have meaningful relationships, personal and professional, meaning you had love, money, freedom, whatever it is that you want. So as you listen to this, hold a result in your mind. Think about what are the results that you want, because if it's more outcome-based, I think then your relationships, you'll have something to look forward to. So think about the different results that you want with personal relationships, if you're listening to this because of personal relationships, and that could be with family, friends, spouse, future spouse, whoever it is. And think about the result that you want for professional relationships. And even though it's professional, it doesn't always have to be money. It could be a certain result. What is it that you really want? And you don't necessarily need to make that be an emotion, because really if you want to feel a certain emotion, you can do that right now. You can remember a time in the past that you felt that emotion and you could have that. So if you say, I want to be happy in a relationship, you can actually create your own happiness right now. Think of a time that you were totally happy, see what you saw, hear what you heard, and really feel the feelings of being totally happy. So make it be a bit more specific. What's the outcome that you want? So you can think of that, because there's a lot of things that hold people back from really getting the relationships that they want. And one of the things to consider, this is something that I've always considered in all my different relationships, is what can I actually control? Because if I think back to some of my past relationships, I could control the effort that I put into the relationship, and I can control the attitude that I had. Now, if neither of those things are aligned, or only one of them is aligned, it's going to be very difficult to have a really fulfilling relationship. And there's really three big reasons that a lot of relationships, whether personal or professional, they can easily fail. So the first one is there's not a value alignment. So people in the relationship, whatever is important to them, this is not getting fulfilled. So if they're in a relationship and if they're not motivated towards achieving anything in common, like common values, chances are it's going to be difficult to achieve what you want. Even in professional, a lot of companies, they go after certain values, so the employees of the company are motivated. Another reason is people then are anchored towards negative things. Now you see this a lot of times when people start to build up resentment in other people, because a lot of times when a relationship first started, what was really happening? The people were getting to know each other. They started to see all the things that they liked, most likely. Then all of a sudden, you get in this relationship and you start to see different sides, different conversations you have with this person, different feelings, different habits, different behaviors, different thoughts. You notice these things, then all of a sudden you might start to think a little negative. So a relationship can really start to not go so well when you're anchored to these negative things in the relationship. Because a lot of times if I'm working with people and let's say a couple comes in, the first thing I need to ask them is, hey, is the relationship worth saving? And if it is, then I need to make sure, what are they anchored to in the relationship? If they have a lot of resentment built up, then I need to work with them to get rid of all those negative emotions that they've built up for themselves and for this other person. So you can actually do that. And if you're interested, all my information will be in the description of the episode. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is because of unfulfilled strategies. So what does this mean? This means that we have a strategy in our mind. We have an unconscious process in our mind for every single thing that we do. Working, sleeping, being with other people, relationships, whatever it is. So if I'm in a relationship with a person, or you're in a relationship with a person, and none of your strategies are being fulfilled, maybe this also builds up different resentment. So you need to think about, are you fulfilling your strategies? Are those being fulfilled? And at the same time, are you communicating how the other person wants to be communicated to? Relationships are not something that you do 50-50. Relationships are something that you're going to put in 100% and the other person's going to put in 100%. Because if not, then you're barely meeting each other halfway. 50-50 is not going to cut it. So if you really want to have deep, meaningful, personal and professional relationships, you need to consider those three reasons as well and notice if any of those are happening in any of the relationships that you have. And think to yourself, is this relationship worth saving? If it is, then you definitely need to put effort into that and have the right attitude to do it, because those things you totally can control. Now, of course, the other person in the relationship, whatever type of relationship it is, they need to be willing to put in effort and have a good attitude about this as well. That 100%. You don't want to be putting in 100% and feel like you're doing, and the other person's like, well, I don't need to change anything. More resentment might be built up. So it's up to you to make that decision for yourself and your relationships. So some of the common limiting beliefs about relationships that people really have that are not allowing them to build the relationships that they want. This is what we really have to consider here. Some people, they have a fear of abandonment. They have a fear of rejection. They don't feel like they deserve love or relationships, or they don't feel enough, so they don't think they're interesting enough, successful enough, attractive enough. They just don't feel like they're good enough. And a lot of people, they do a lot of mind reading in relationships. They think, well, if this person really cared, they just know what I need. No, you need to put in effort and you need to have a good attitude about this. So professional relationships as well, a lot of people have the belief that networking is self-serving. However, you need to have the mentality that you're putting in effort to show that you can provide value to people, and then other people in return are going to provide value to you. Relationships, it's a continuous cycle of giving and receiving. So if you can find people who have similar values, who want their strategies fulfilled, and who want positive emotions in their reality, when you give, you're going to receive back. And this is a continuous cycle. And this means you're in a successful relationship as well. And like I said, think of the result that you want. So in order to get rid of these limiting beliefs, there's a few things that we want to consider. So let's say you have a limiting belief of, I'm not good enough, or fear of rejection, or fear of abandonment. This probably leads to a certain strategy in the relationship that is having the relationship not be fulfilled in the way that you want it. Your mind is way smarter than you think. So if you're having fears inside of a relationship, how do you think that this relationship is going to be filled up with all the good stuff, all the satisfaction, all the fulfillment, all the happiness, all the joy if you're looking at it through a lens of fear? So what if you were to look at a relationship, a personal one, through the lens of joy or through the lens of happiness or love? What if you were to sink into that feeling and you practice seeing yourself and that person through love and through joy? So you can do that. Another thing that you can do is you can ask yourself, when did I decide to create this belief? What can I learn from this belief? And what can I do instead? This will recover choices. A lot of people, when they have negative emotions or limiting beliefs, they don't see that they have other choices. They don't see other choices, they don't see other opportunities, and they don't see other possibilities. So what if you started to communicate with yourself in a way that was beneficial? What do you think that would do for the relationship? Because think about it. If you have fear, how are you going to be motivated to achieve what you want in the relationship? How are you going to have positive anchors and see positive things in the other people if you have things like fear or anger or resentment built up? And how, if you have fear or any of your strategies, how are any of these things going to be fulfilled? What if you were to consider that? Because if you're operating from that lens of fear, how could any of the good in the relationship really be fulfilled if that's how you're thinking about it? So think about what you can do instead and what you can really learn from this belief. Because really, you should be operating in relationships. There should be no fear. You should be looking at things through joy, through love, through happiness, through confidence, through collaboration, whatever type of relationship it is. Interesting, curiosity. You have a willingness to experiment and get to know people and be successful, that you are attractive, that you want to have connection, that you don't operate from thinking, oh, I'm going to do something and prevent possible pain. No, relationships are a pleasurable experience. If they're personal, they certainly are. And if they're professional, they can be, because that means if they're professional, you're probably going after common goals, or you're helping this other person and they're helping you. So you really need to address these limiting beliefs. And there's also other ways, if you were to really consider, to build personal and professional relationships, building those connections that you have with other people. There's some certain ways to do that. And obviously, if you want to build meaningful connections, check out that episode with Kristen Nolan. She shows you that relationships are the ultimate currency. So how can you build stronger personal and professional relationships? One of the things that you can do is you can practice sharing, being vulnerable, being authentic, genuine. People vibrate, their frequency, their energy vibrates at a really high level of love and joy and all these things when they know that you're authentic. So if you can practice always being you for who you are and sharing genuine stories about yourself. Have you ever met someone and it seems like right away you just feel a certain unconscious rapport, like you maybe known this person forever, or they remind you of an old friend just because you're sharing genuine stories? So think about that. What if you could be really, really curious about another person and you could find out things about them and then share stories about you that relates to those things about them? Don't you think that that would build a really deep connection? Now, this isn't like a performance. You're being genuine. You're sharing things that you really want to share from your authentic self. There's so many times that I've seen this, even with clients. So a lot of times when I'm working with clients is people are going to share certain things about their life, not because they have to, but because they want to. The most successful clients that I notice, or you may find if you work with clients as well, are the people that are ready to share who they are, their authentic self. Because if you're not your authentic self and you're telling me a bunch of lies, let's say, how is this going to be giving me the information that I'm going to need to help you? I don't need to know your whole personal history. However, I've seen clients who share, they're vulnerable, they share certain things, certain emotions, things that they're going through, things from their authentic self. And these types of clients then are able to step into their authentic self. I was just working with someone the other day, and they told me exactly what they were feeling, exactly what they wanted. By the end of the session, because they were open and sharing this, they were able to really step into those emotions and feel them and create the success that they wanted. So that's one way. Be really authentic. That's super important. The next thing that you can do is you could be really intentional with your communication. Now, in relationships, a lot of people, they may be, because of those limiting beliefs, they want to people please, or they're scared to ask for what they want. Has that ever happened to you? You're in a relationship, you want something, and you just don't know how to communicate that to the other person. So you need to practice here, being intentional in your communication, stating your needs, telling this other person what you want, and then also actively listen to what this person says when they're doing the same thing with you. And what does this get for you? This allows you to align those values, those behaviors, and then this will allow you to easily really fulfill those strategies of different people. So anytime I'm in a relationship or I get to know someone on a deeper level, I let them know that I'm a really literal listener. So if you want something from me, or you want a strategy to be fulfilled, or you want something, tell me exactly the way you want it. This is what I tell people. If you're kind of beating around the bush, and let's say at work, someone wants something, and they're like, oh, my boss told me that we should get this organized. I'm thinking, okay, that's cool that your boss is organizing that, but I never thought maybe that they're specifically telling me to do that. So in any type of personal relationship or professional relationship, in order for me to really know exactly what to do, I like to be told literally what to do. It's just easier for me to have the conversation with someone if that's how it starts. Now, over time, because of the communication skills I have from different trainings and everything like this, I do ask questions now if someone, because I have this knowledge, I do ask questions if someone wants something, so I know exactly what they want as well. So in order to be intentional with your communication, you need to know that other person's communication style as well as your own, and ask plenty of questions so you know exactly what this person wants, because maybe they said something to you and they expected you to put in a certain effort or have a certain attitude or take action and help them. However, when they told you, it wasn't so much in your communication style, so you just kind of not necessarily ignored it, but you thought, okay, that's great. They told me that, but they didn't tell me what they needed. So when you ask for what you need, say it how you want it, and say it how you know that other person will understand. So that's a really good way to build strong personal and professional relationships as well. And another one that I've found really helpful for myself, just because I'm really into personal growth and different trainings and reading and writing books and all of this, I think it's really important to have a certain element of growth in the relationship where you're growing together. So you have a connection. It starts out, this can be personal or professional. However, you're willing to both put in effort to grow and become the better or best future, ideal self, however you want to think about it. So this is really helpful because I've found that when people, even students of mine, let's say, not that they're taking other trainings from me specifically, because I don't have to continuously sell things to other people if they don't need them. But I love catching up with students, and then as they're working, after they got the certificate, or whatever it is, they're using hypnosis, they're using these communication models, whatever it is. And when they start to use those with other people, and I can see that they want to be around other people that grow, it's really fulfilling for them, and it's also fulfilling for me because then they're growing, I'm catching up with them, and then we get to also grow together, and I get to be a part of their growth. It's something that's really fulfilling for other people. And the fourth one that I'm going to mention, now, you would think that this is automatic for a lot of people: consistency and trust. People are going to remember how you make them feel. They're not always going to remember what you do or what you say so much. However, people, they're going to get that feeling when you're around them. And they're going to remember that feeling and how you made them feel in different events. And the way to really build a feeling where someone feels that safety, that security, it's to have consistency. You do something that you say you're going to do, and you do it. And this builds trust. Really, every single relationship is built on having a connection and having trust. If you don't have trust, then the whole relationship can fall apart, because what's it really built on? So do what you say you're going to do, and be around people who have integrity and things like this. And when you start to see that someone isn't making you feel how you want to feel. Now, I use the word make there. That doesn't mean that other person is in charge of making you feel a certain way. However, if you notice that they're saying certain things, or you're seeing them do certain actions, and it's not necessarily making you feel good, and you're really second-guessing things, you need to really ask yourself, is there trust there? So maybe you've had a relationship where you just totally, fully entrust that person, and you're in one right now and it feels really, really good. And maybe you've had relationships in the past where that trust wasn't there, and you were always thinking, well, what's going to happen? It's like you were walking around on eggshells and you had no idea what was ever going to happen. This doesn't feel good. So if you've experienced either of these, think about how you can really build that trust. And that starts with really trusting yourself to take the right actions, think the right thoughts, have the right beliefs, the values, deliver things with your strategy, your communication. It's having all those resources inside of you and trusting yourself to do these things as well. So those are some of the things that you want to do to create these really good, lasting relationships. And when we think of this, we want to think win-win. We want everyone to win in these relationships. That's why I also told you to think about a result that you wanted in personal or professional relationships. Because if you think about it, what's one belief that you hold about relationships that might be holding you back? Or what's even one belief that you hold about relationships that's really going to unlock all the beneficial relationships for you and so many people around you? That's really important to think about. So continue to think about that, because creating meaningful connections and relationships, it's really one of the reasons why I think we're here. So I definitely hope this helps. Definitely share this with someone you think will benefit. It's really helpful to get this information into the minds of so many people. And if you haven't already, go ahead and rate the podcast. This really helps this get to more listeners in the minds of many others, because I truly believe if we have better relationships, it'll make the world a better place. If you haven't already, check out my newest book, The Transformative Power of Hypnosis. And there's so many people that use hypnosis to build better relationships. The link for the book, it's available on Amazon, Kindle and paperback. It'll be in the description of the episode. If you're listening to this on YouTube, it'll be on the description there. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you on the next episode.